Hello, and thank you for tuning in to our weekly blockchain gaming news roundup. Today is Friday, the 6th of December. I'm your host, Jenny Jordan, and with me is co-host John Jordan. Hi, John. How are you doing?
Yes, very good.
Good. Had a good week.
Yeah, busy.
Busy. Bitcoin's
Yeah.
up. Woohoo!
Finally,
Finally.
yeah,
100,000.
yeah.
Good news. Right, in terms of blockchain games, the news have been that CCP Games Eve Frontier is entering closed alpha on the 10th of December. Now you can go and buy passes for this,
Yep.
which I think that opened yesterday. So tell us a little bit about Eve Frontier and why you might want to join in. Why is it sort of a significant game, you'd say, in the industry? And
Yeah. So obviously, Eve Online is sort of a very well-known sort of famous, I guess, MMO space-based sort of combat and trading. So that's been around for 10 years. It's sort of often. I mean, it's kind of hard to exactly judge, but generally, it's sort of seen as one of the most hardcore games ever. And I guess you can make a really hardcore game and it be a failure and no one plays it. I guess Eve has been that interesting one where it is. I mean, I haven't played it, but it's a super hardcore game to get into. It's just very, very complicated, and it just takes a long time to sort of build up sort of ships and all this sort of stuff. And the sort of CEO Helmar Peterson has always sort of said, said most recently that it is sort of almost like a blockchain game in a sense that they have always treated their assets as if they are sort of on a blockchain. I mean, they're not, but it's generally called it a database game. That's the sort of people it's appealed to. And I guess famously, you've had these big battles where these sort of alliances come together and have big battles, and these ships that have taken them years. And if you do the calculation, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars to build, get blown up. And it's a proper destruction. So there's always been, I think, an interesting element of EVE Online, and there's always been with all MMORPGs this sort of element where there's in-game currency, which you're not allowed to sort of trade outside of the game. You're not allowed that in any MMORPGs, but obviously in every MMORPG, people do trade these non-cryptocurrencies because they're useful. So long introduction. So Eve Frontier is sort of the attempt from the Eve Online team to build sort of the next step. So build something that is on a blockchain, and so comes with these sort of an extension, I guess, of the Eve vision. But it is more than that. So they've it's pretty early days. So they've announced a closed alpha. So this is the first. They've had some tests before, so people could get into these sort of time-limited tests. But now they've said they have a closed alpha server going live that will be permanently live. And obviously there'll be. They feel that they've got the game to a sort of stable enough state they can do that. But lots of things will be changing in the game. Lots of things will be added. They said on occasions the server will be sort of wiped. So I assume sort of everything goes back to zero. But this is the first stage where players can get some sort of permanent aspects of the game, like you can get a username. So that's one of the main reasons why you might buy one of these Frontier passes. You get a user, you can get a username that will be yours for as long as the game lasts. So whether it's recommended for people, I don't know. Obviously, I've not played EVE Online. So it is going to be super hardcore, and some of the comments from people who played the earlier sort of playtest, which is like, this game's really, really hard. So it is a sort of they call it a sort of space sandbox, and more than just the previous Eve, which I think had some modding capabilities. So the capabilities for players to change things in the game. This is basically going to end up a sort of pure, pretty much open source game. So it's running on a particular blockchain called Redstone, which is a EVM layer 2. Fully on-chain game, using like an engine called Mud for the blockchain side of things. But on the game side of things, they're using their own internal tools, which CCP have used for making Eve, which is called Carbon. But they're open sourcing that, and open sourcing means everyone can look at the source code, and and the point of them doing this is it means people can sort of build, quite players can do the same things that the developers of the game can do. So it's sort of, very much like the blockchain sort of decentralized sort of aspect where there are sort of clearly rules. So on Ethereum, there are sets of standards and rules, and those maybe rules can sort of change a bit, or you can bring new rules in. But once, anyone can build on blockchain, on Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana, and the developers don't have a special sort of key that they can do special things that no one else can do. So that's the idea with Eve Frontier is if you are a coder or have any capability of coding or creating things. Obviously, people can create tools to let other people who can't code create things. But everyone has the same access to the sort of the core rules of the game. So it could be a total disaster from that point of view. Obviously, it's very much dependent, I suppose, for this to be a success. It's very much more dependent on a community growing up around it, who will be building things. And obviously, I guess the CCP core team will be building maybe some core things. There's some tools that they will want to think are useful to people with their experience of Eve as a game. But if people want to come in and build weird, crazy stuff, and partly that's sort of building obviously spaceships and things in there, and but with the blockchain side of it, you can create your own token. So there is a sort of an Eve token. There's two tokens in the game. One's more like a fuel token, and one's more like a currency. But anyone, like we see at the moment with meme coins, in that sense, anyone you'll be able to create a meme coin within Eve online. Maybe some other things as well. So it is quite a big, massive experiment. It's very early days for it. As I say, sort of you can, as you said, there are. If you want to start playing on the 10th, then you can buy a pass. It's $30 is the cheapest one. $90 at the moment for the most expensive one. The price goes up, I think, in a week's time. And they give you different things. So you get some skins for the ships, and you get access to the developers, and also when the game goes live, maybe in 2026 or something, that game will be a free-to-play game, but there will be sort of a premium. They're calling it sort of premium, not currency, premium. So there'll be a premium subscription service. Quite what that'll be, I don't know, but that's how they're sort of funding it. So if you get these passes now, you'll basically build up an allocation of hours of this premium subscription thing as well. So it's sort of I don't think you're sort of getting it's really for sort of hardcore people who want to play the game now. I don't think you're getting the value of the money you're spending now, particularly in terms of the assets you're getting.
It's interesting you're saying that, like, it's so sort of rooted in the community, the EVE Online. Now that's interesting, because how have those players received the sort of news that it's going to go blockchain? Because generally you would think that those wouldn't like that very much, but Hilmar, we know, wasn't always very keen on kind of blockchain either, but then clearly now they've embraced it fully and raised 40 million for that vision. So there could be some resistance there, couldn't it?
Yeah, I'm not in the EVE community, so I'm not really. I don't think in the past we've heard very strong reactions of gamers against blockchain, and I think Hilmar has been sort of the he's tried to contextualize it in a way where he's saying EVE Online is a database game, but you don't need to know about databases to play it, sort of thing. And he's saying sort of very much like EVE Frontier is a blockchain game, not a crypto game. So that's sort of the sort of positioning he's sort of making on it. But clearly, we'll have to see. I mean, I guess the problem with this game is you would think the initial community is going to be people who are either playing EVE now or have played EVE in the past. But it's just such a hard game to get into. One of the problems with EVE is they've never been able to really grow it. So I think I can't remember what figures they give. Millions of people have signed up to play the game. But I think if you look at the sort of the monthly active users or something, it would be in the sort of probably in the hundreds of thousands. I mean, there's no official figures, but that's sort of my gut feeling. It's not millions of people playing this game, probably a few hundred thousand. So maybe some of those will be sort of interested in just sort of checking it out. But if they don't, if you're correct, and like 50% of them don't like this sort of blockchain idea, then they're gonna, it's going to be a long, hard sort of marketing push to get enough people in it. Because that's the other problem with these fully on-chain games, is as we've remarked before, there's loads of people making fully on-chain games. We quite like the concept of fully on-chain games. There's some really interesting elements, particularly people being able to build things in these fully on-chain games. But with one exception, which we'll come to, basically people making fully on-chain games find about the only people who play them are the other people making fully on-chain games. There's about 1,000 people really into this stuff, and they pile into all this. It's great. I exaggerate a little bit, but most of these games are quite complex to play, and they just can't find the audience. So the one sort of exception is a Pirate Nation, which we've spoken about before in the past, and again they've not given official figures, but it looks like they have sort of about 50 to 80,000 sort of players, sort of like from dailies to monthlies, and that's because it's a very easy game to play. It's a browser-based game, and you just sort of pile into it, and it's you can just play it as a very sort of simple game. Whereas I think Eve is just the type of game it is not that accessible. Anyway, I bought a founder pass, so we'll we'll see if I even get down to downloading the game and being able to do anything in it. Normally, my situations, I get enthusiastic when these things are announced, and then by the time it gets to doing it, I don't quite know. I have my at least I have my player name is reserved at least.
Good. No, it's a very different game. Pudgy Penguins. Well, it's not the game, but that's the NFT collection. Luca Nets that he bought for $2.5 million.
Amazing! What a deal maker! Is he going to be American president in 20 years' time? Where you go, I'm the deal maker of the century. It's a very, very Trumpian thing.
Talking of Luca Nets, he was our fifth on day 5 actually. So as you get some context. Throughout December, we are running our blockchain gaming advent calendar. So each day we are revealing one of the top 31 prominent people that have in some good way impacted the industry in 2024. So we started on day 1 with obviously the 31st person, and then we're counting down towards last of December. So yesterday we actually had Luca Nets as part of our calendar. Go check that out on our website.
And that was pre-planned total luck. So that wasn't me quickly added him in. It was just that was the number he got. So
no, and you will understand actually, because the day before, 2 days before that, we had Michael O'Connor from Today, and that had obviously also been pre-planned, and then we were debating, is it still sort of okay to have him in there because of all the things that transpired around the how Today launched the token. And so anyway, that's a different story. We're not going to dive into that. Anyway, so Pudgy Penguins, they have announced a PENGU token, which makes total sense considering this is much more than just an NFT collection today. So talk us through, John, what is Pudgy Penguins? I think it's
So the long story of Pudgy Penguins. So Pudgy Penguins was one of those just sort of a bit of a joke sort of NFT collection that came up in 2021, 2022, and there were Pudgy Penguins and was it Suck Ducks, and I mean just all manner of, sort of animal sort of NFTs off the back of sort of Bored Apes being a massive success. So there were a whole bunch of these sort of things, stoner cats, and they all had a slightly different sort of take on what they were doing. And then, but then sort of Pudgy Penguins were sort of cool. They were a little bit different. And they had a few things like they had the Huddle. That was their community, was the Huddle. Unfortunately, they were run by. I mean, most of these teams were fairly inexperienced, but it seems like the Pudgy Penguins' original team were really inexperienced, and the leader was particularly either inexperienced or somewhat. What word to use? Anyway, there was a falling out between sort of him and the community, and actually, I owned a Pudgy Penguin back in that time. And there's actually it was funny. There was like an internal sort of revolt against the leadership of the original sort of CEO, and you basically a whole bunch of people, not that many actually, but about 5% of the Pudgy Penguins were forked to another contract, and they were, I can't remember what they called them now. Some sort of anyway. So there was sort of this. It was a community in sort of real trouble, and had no leadership, and there was one of the big founders, or one of the big collectors, put out a big long tweet about how he'd been buying them all up, and it was sort of disaster, and how he tried to buy the collection, and it was really real quite sort of toxic. And then this guy who I didn't hear of before, but I think fairly known in the States, but not a massive figure. Luca Nets came in, a fairly young entrepreneur, and bought it for 2.5 million, which at the time didn't seem like a great deal. It seemed like he was paying quite a lot for it. But obviously he's been a total sort of revitalizing force, breath of fresh air. And and some of the stuff he's done is not that difficult behind the scenes. But he most famously, I guess, it was last Christmas, I suppose, he created these Pudgy plushies, and got them into Walmart. Which, talking to people who know how to do that, it's not that difficult. Obviously, you have to spend the money making the Pudgies and all that sort of stuff, and you have to be persuasive because he was the first to sort of get an NFT collection into Walmart. But it's not as hard as it may sound. But anyway, he did it, and it was he managed. I think it was a success. Not a massive success, but they sold. I can't remember, sold like 1 million of them or something like that. So that really sort of that combined with the sort of just general enthusiasm and actually a vision coming in. So a lot of these sort of NFT collections, I guess, like Yuga Labs, sort of just get a bit lost in their own sort of vision, and they're not quite sure. They have so much going on, whereas the Pudgies, I think, were quite meat and two potatoes. This is what we're sort of doing. So that's been going on. There's been rumours about a token for ages. That's helped the price. But basically, over the last sort of year, Pudgy Penguins sort of went from a couple of ETH, and suddenly they were sort of like 10 ETH, and they were sort of seen as the they were never like Bored Apes or crypto punks, never at that level, but they were sort of seen as sort of the more sort of mass market. So there's, I guess, in that sort of same sector, there's sort of Doodles, which is a bit sort of, I guess Doodles are maybe a bit cooler, but again maybe a bit lost in their vision of what they're trying to do, and it takes time to work that vision out. But then Pudgy's this year, and the reason we actually had him in our advent calendar was that they've been quite focused on gaming, but gaming's been a big part of their narrative. So they've had this thing called Pudgy World, which doesn't seem to be going anywhere. A bit like sort of Club Penguin or something like that. They think they launched it about a year ago, but nothing really seems to have happened very much about that. But that's more like a social sort of mini game type thing, if that ever happens. And then they've also announced they're doing Pudgy Party, which is a sort of Fall Guys type game, party game with Mythical Games, who are obviously very well known, probably the preeminent mobile game developer of Web3 games. So really know what they're doing. So there's just sort of quite a lot of stuff sort of happening. And finally announced this token, the PENGU token. So obviously that's people who own these NFTs. They're pretty happy because the price has gone up. It's now 15 ETH or something like that, I think. So that's a pretty, historically not many NFT collections have got to that level, no matter what the price of ETH has been. Obviously, the price of ETH is fairly high at the moment. Now everyone's going to get an allocation of these coins. It looks like actually they're going to give some coins away to. There'll be an allocation for other NFT sort of collections. So that's sort of interesting for people, maybe like me, who used to own a penguin and then sold it. So maybe something else we have will get us some. But just generally, obviously the sentiment is exactly right for this sort of stuff to happen. If Kamala Harris had won, maybe they'd be launching a token and people would just be like a bit meh. But back into sort of token launching time. I mean, Magic Eden's launching its tokens. Apparently, 300 million of value of that going to go to people who've been buying NFTs. So some Pudgy Penguin traders might, if they've done it through Magic Eden, they'll be pretty happy this Christmas.
Well, no, it's funny you say back into token launching. It feels like 2024 has been nothing but a lot of tokens, and so. But this is actually token launches that are quite timely, whereas you would say that tokens launching previous to sort of.
Oh yeah, no.
Timed token launches.
I would imagine that this has been this has been in the works for a while. I say people have been rumor mills have been about the Pudgy token for probably about a year or so. And I think that's the thing with tokens is you have to sort of have it all planned out and be ready to go, but you basically wait until the time is right. You just blindly going ahead and launching a token is, which we've seen in the past, people sort of been locked. Smaller projects feel like they're locked in. They don't have any ability to sort of say, no, we're not doing this. And I think the other thing is that the more you want to launch your token on centralized exchanges, and obviously the bit longer the process becomes because they need more sort of time. I don't know what the launch is for Pudgy, but Pudgy Penguin is such a big brand that that almost people will be coming to them rather than the other way around.
It's a good thing we've got AI. They're going to sort all of these complications out for us. Anyway, let's move on. We're talking about Mythical Games there, who have been collaborating with Pudgy Penguins on a game, Pudgy Party. Now, Mythical Games also recently revealed a NFL FIFA football game coming in 2025, or soccer, if you're American. And their current game, NFL Rivals, which launched in May of this year, like for the full launch, I think, soft launch last year. It's now traded over 10 million in NFT trading volume. So how have you come to that figure? Because in August, I remember they took down the the trackers. So this is data from CryptoSlam, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a little bit complicated. But yeah, CryptoSlam, as you say, is like a data site that tracks NFT trading. So we've up to this point we've been getting data from that, and you say NFL Rival's been out for a while. It's been running on the Mythos chain, but behind the scenes, the Mythos chain has sort of been transitioning. So it was originally sort of its own custom chain, I think, based on the EOS SDK back in the day. But it moved to Polkadot in August, I think. Or around that sort of time. So in the tracking the data, you get all the months apart from the month of August in CryptoSlam. So it depends. The fact that NFL Rivals has hit $10 million in trading volume depends a little bit on what happened in August, which we don't know. But if you assume that it's roughly the same as what happened in July, and July is normally, because the American football season starts in September, July is normally like quite a quiet month. So I think that's a fairly decent assumption. I mean, it may be totally wrong, but if you assume that's the case, then they've hit 10 million. And obviously, it's a symbolic number. What does it mean? I guess what's interesting is more that the sort of monthly trading volume is accelerating. Obviously, you would get that in September as the season, American season starts, and then it normally peaks around sort of Super Bowl in February. But I think it just shows that it's been, sometimes with NFT sort of projects, you get a lot of trading straight away, and then it sort of dies away and never comes back, or so there is some sort of cyclic nature in this particular game, but it seems to follow the cyclic nature of the sport of which it is modeling. And I think the other thing is, obviously, as you get more people in the game, I don't think the game's growing massively. They've said it's like 6 million downloads. I think maybe a little bit higher now. I don't know, but that's the last official figure. So, I think probably you would say, again, hundreds of thousands of monthly active users, maybe 500,000 monthly active users. If we look at CryptoSlam, there's only tens of thousands of people who are owning those NFTs and trading them. So it's still a small percentage of the overall player base. But I think as more features are brought in, so in particular, they have this one called Quick Trades, where you can basically... is it Quick Trades or I can't remember if it's the right name. Anyway, there's ways in which you can take basically low value cards or player characters that you don't want, and you can bundle them up. So if I have like 10 1-unit cards, let's say, I can bundle those up so I have 10 units or 10 tokens, and then buy obviously a card that is much more valuable, 10 times more valuable. So it's actually not a great deal. I mean, it's a good deal for Mythical, because they've basically built this sort of good system where they're buying cards off you at quite a low value. But the other option is you have to try and sort of sell these very low value cards, which there's loads of them out there. So it's very hard to sell those. So it's sort of the only way of doing it. It's sort of like burning your dust to get to get sort of more value. So as those sort of features get more used by players of the game, then obviously trading volume is going to go up, quite significantly, because people aren't selling individual cards; they're just like taking all their old stuff and dumping it. And obviously American football as well. You have different seasons, quite a lot of different seasons, and sort of players retire, and so you have those. That makes some cards more valuable, and some cards, next season you also want the new card with the player in the right kit and all that sort of stuff. So as we see in sort of FIFA and so on, those sort of things. So it's a different dynamic. But and again, I mean, I wouldn't overplay it. I don't think NFL Rivals is a massive success, but I think the fact that they've announced FIFA Rivals suggests that they think it's working pretty well. FIFA, these licenses, NFL Rivals and FIFA, getting these licenses is not cheap. This is millions of dollars worth of licensing money. You don't do it if your business model is a total disaster. So that's another sort of underlying thing that I think, and Mythical, one of the things they have to do, because they have a platform, so they have NFL Rivals, they have Nitro Nation, which is a game that's really not taken off at all. They have the sort of Blancos mobile stuff coming back. They have Pudgy Penguins, which will probably use the same marketplace, I would imagine, but maybe not. But as they put more games into this marketplace, you'll get to this situation where I can take, I can decide I want to sell out all my NFL Rival cards, and I'm going to buy an expensive Blancos, or sell some of my American football cards and a Pudgy Penguin and buy a cool racing car in Nitro Nation. So I mean that's not live yet, but you can sort of see in a couple of years' time they're going to hopefully have quite a sort of liquid market. So this is why
I'm already saving up so I can sell my NFL Rivals players and buy FIFA Rivals when it launches.
No, exactly. and I think that's that's sort of a little bit of the sort of the vision of blockchain, which you sort of have been able to do in a fully decentralized manner, but it's just a lot of friction in it. And unless you have automatic market makers who will buy low level items, then you just can't get the liquidity in the system. So you have to be slightly centralized in a way and sort of build these sort of guide rails into it. So that's why I sort of spend so much time with NFL Rivals. So I do think they're sort of the furthest ahead in building a gaming economy around NFTs.
Mm-hmm. Good. Right, next up, Sky Mavis has announced a new Axie Adoption Center feature, which lets kind of new players who are wanting to play Axie Infinity but haven't got any Axies, they can be delegated or they can adopt Axies through this service. So because they won't own the Axies when they start, but then they can accumulate sort of points and rewards, and so they earn these Axies if they accumulate a certain amount of points in 30 days. So it's another way, basically, for Sky Mavis to onboard more players. It's currently got around 100,000 players, Axie Infinity, I think, which is up quite significantly, actually, throughout 2024. So, yeah, they're doing well. They've been sort of restructuring their whole kind of rewards model throughout this year, and it's paid off, certainly, in terms of at least people being interested in kind of earning. But also this is obviously just another way of trying to get those players in.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see sort of how it goes. I mean, it's not something I would have thought would have really moved the needle. I mean, one of the things is, at the moment, if you want to buy Axies, they're like a couple of dollars. So, obviously, some people in different parts of the world that's a big issue. But in order to get involved with this Axie adoption agency, you need to have created a Ronin wallet, which is not nothing. I mean, you can just do it with an email actually now. Then also you have to connect to Discord. So obviously, for a lot of people, that would be like they either wouldn't be able to do that, or if you have a very low end phone, connecting to Discord might be a bit harder. Anyway, we'll see. But it's a nice idea that basically, you turn up, you get something for free, you play for 30 days, and then you're given these NFTs. Again, because they're low level ones, you probably can't sell them on to people because they're not that interesting, but onboarding people. And I guess the interesting thing, the reason they probably may have done it is they are giving away quite a lot of AXS token at the moment, and that's what's driven the growth, as you say, up to 100,000 daily active unique wallets at the moment. Started the year about 15,000, so you can see, it's quite a big jump. I mean, still relatively compared to what it was at its peak, low, but they are giving away hundreds of thousands of dollars every quarter, I think. But the interesting thing from their point of view, again, when we spoke to Jeff Zerling, he was saying, I think he said 70% of those tokens are being saved at the moment because you can stake those tokens and get 30% return on that. So we're in a bit of a, see if it's a bull market now, but if you get some AXS, you get $10 of AXS, you stake it, you're getting $3 a year for free, and the price is going up, so the price has probably gone up, probably doubled or gone up 50% at least in the last couple of days. So suddenly you get these sort of things combining. So they must have done it they must have had think it's going to allow them to sort of open up that marketing funnel and get people involved. So.
And if I remember right, I think Sky Mavis tried this model with delegation before in Homeland, and you could delegate your land to other players. The difference now is that you would sort of be delegated an Axie that isn't yours, but you can play the game and earn and get better to the point where you then actually own it. So that would be sort of an extra incentive really for players.
I just kind of think they must think that in the markets that they're particularly into in Southeast Asia, where just people haven't got $10 to spend on some digital Axie. It's just not in people's heads. And obviously back in the day when they had that really big growth, it was because guilds were giving them, guilds were basically giving this sort of service. They were buying the Axies and giving them to you, and then you were earning straight away. So they're trying to build that into the game, so you basically get these things for free, and I mean, if it works, you could imagine it would get them up to it could double their audience.
Good. And talking of guilds, we have Pixels, which have launched they haven't launched it yet, actually. They have announced their second Guild Wars event, which is featuring a 4 million worth of pixel prize pool. So not insignificant at all. To join that, you have to join a guild first. And it basically revolves similar to their first Guild War event, which was earlier in 2024.
Yeah,
it's sort of growing crops, growing mushrooms,
isn't it?
Mushrooms, and then sort of trying to destroy other guilds' crops, and in that way, sort of build up your ranks and your rewards, and you're ranked both individually and as a team, and you get rewarded based on that. But they'll run for 3 months, starting off on the 10th of December, and running till March 2025. So,
I mean, again, they sort of. I think the Pixels people are very, very focused on, who they reward, and obviously they see if you're in a guild. I mean, I think you even have to be in a guild before the thing launches. So they're very focused on getting people where they want them to give the rewards to them, and that's been an interesting sort of a business model refinement, I think, for them over the whole year.
Journey, sort of development to follow. How they are reworking and really stubborn to make play to earn sort of work and find the weak points, the sort of those that just extract from the game, and focus on incentivizing and rewarding the sort of loyal players. And clearly Luke Pawlikowski is a very clever sort of man and CEO. So if anyone can sort of get pay to earn to work, it would be him, you'd think. Good. So finally, we have Overworld and Rough House Games, which have announced. So to give some context, for Overworld is the Jeremy Horn's kind of exteriors.
I will slightly rudely interrupt you there because we just have a delivery at the door. So if you go and you switch off, and I'll explain and finish off the podcast. Okay, thanks, Jenny. So this is sort of one we've laughed about a little bit this week because we haven't really quite made sense of it ourselves. But there are two game development companies. One is called Overworld, and that is an internal game studio, a US company, I think based in Florida, and that's the internal game studio for a company called Xtereo. And Xtereo is sort of building its own. It does have its own blockchain. It's actually an L2 running on BNB, and it has a whole bunch of games that are attached to it in various different ways. And it was the start of 2024, had a whole bunch of NFT sales that went very well, and then has been very, very quiet for the rest of 2024. So that's Overworld. And then Rough House Games also has a sort of quite complicated history. So originally it was a division that was part of Jam City, the American mobile free-to-play publisher. And so that was building Web3 games within Jam City. Then it spun out as Play Labs. But then Play Labs has focused more on AI, and so what became Rough House Games spun out of what was Play Labs as Rough House Games, and it's working on Champions Ascension, which is a sort of combat RPG. So these two entities that have sort of been quite quiet really in 2024, not much going on really. They're sort of combining. It's not very clear whether those companies are shutting down and the new company called Reach Labs is sort of they're sort of formally merging and becoming Reach Labs, or if Reach Labs is sort of like some sort of joint venture between them. It's not very clear from the press release. But one of the key things is Reach Labs is using this blockchain called the Reach Protocol. No, the Keystone Protocol, sorry. And the Keystone Protocol was something that Rough House came up with for Champions Ascension. It doesn't look like it's it is a blockchain, but it looks like it's not a blockchain that games are going to run on. It looks like it's more like a sort of viral marketing rewards sort of social blockchain. So maybe something a little bit like we've seen with things like Carve or something like that, sort of more about sort of ID and data. Maybe I don't know. It's not, again, the problem with this press release is it's not very clear what's happening, and the individual entities involved. It's not very clear to me who has tried to work it out exactly what they're doing. But anyway, this thing called Reach Labs is happening. It's using this Keystone protocol, and Champions Ascension will be using this protocol, and also the games that Overworld is working on. One of which is a PC console game called, or codenamed, working title Conquest. There is another free-to-play mobile game they're working on called Kingdoms, and apparently 2 other games that Overworld is working on, which seems like quite a lot of games to me, but there we go. And obviously, as these things happen, they will be also looking to encourage other game developers to get involved, which may be easier if you're not running your game on that infrastructure, because obviously most people have made their choices now about whether they're running on whatever they're running on, Solana or Base or their own L3. Well, that's been a lot of news this year. So this Keystone protocol may be something a little bit different that you sort of create an identity on and do some sort of referrals and blah blah blah. We'll see. So anyway, so a little bit clear as mud, but at least the most interesting thing for me actually was that we finally got some visibility about what Overworld is doing, which is this Conquest game for PC and console, which obviously that takes a long time to build, and this mobile game called Kingdom. So I guess it's one of those ones where sort of watch this space and we'll see what other information arises. Okay, so I think that's it for this week. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching, listening, and see you next time. Bye-bye.